Secretary Noem, I'm glad that you finally came to testify before this committee, but I'm disappointed, along with a lot of my Democratic colleagues, that you stood here and took an oath to tell the truth, then repeatedly failed to do so to this committee. Let me just say, if you dance with the devil long enough, he's liable to follow you home. I hope that you will stop dancing around the truth and start telling the truth so this committee can do its work, helping to defend DHS from the attacks you've launched against it.
If you've ever wondered what it looks like when a liberal absolutely lights into a Republican who's been playing fast and loose with the truth, buckle up, because Congressman Bennie Thompson just gave the nation a masterclass. Before we go any further, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to this channel for more breakdowns of real accountability in action. Because in times like these, when politicians twist reality and call it patriotism,
Secretary Noem, at the start of this hearing, you stood here and took an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Then you sat down and dodged the truth over and over and over for a little more than 3 hours, so help you God. You repeatedly testified that you and the Department of Homeland Security will follow the Constitution, the laws, and the order of the Supreme Court. Well, the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution says that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And yet, a federal court found that the Department of Homeland Security, under your watch, believes that it has a right to stash away residents of this country in foreign prisons without the semblance of due process. So you did not tell the truth to this committee today when you said you would follow the Constitution and comply with due process. You also testified that you follow orders of the Supreme Court of the United States and all courts. But the Supreme Court unanimously directed the government to facilitate the return of Kilmar Garcia to the United States. But you just testified before this committee that Kilmar Garcia will never return to the United States. So you didn't tell the truth to this committee again when you said that you comply with court orders and decisions. You've overseen the deportation of U.S. citizen children and have claimed that their parents chose to take their children with them. But you produced no evidence that the mother, let alone both parents, of those children freely gave consent to have their children deported from the United States. In fact, everyone involved in those cases say that the mothers, in fact, did not want their children, especially their sick American children, deported. In fact, your agency lured families to ICE appointments under false pretenses, lied to them, refused to let them speak with an attorney or children's father, and deported them before a court had time to even hear the case. You've given yourself the unilateral right to deport anyone you deem a threat. You refuse to comply with court orders that try to stop you. That puts all of us at risk. Beyond your false testimony about the administration's deportation policies, you falsely stated that the administration is focused on a full range of DHS's missions. Instead, your budget request appears to reflect a view that DHS's sole purpose is to be a border wall construction agency that deports U.S. citizen children with cancer. Your budget proposed cuts to cybersecurity, emergency preparedness, and aviation security. Even before asking Congress for these budget cuts, you've overseen mass reductions in the workforce at CISA and FEMA. Despite repeated requests from this committee on how many people have been fired or have been bullied into quitting before their tenure, DHS has refused to share that information. So it should worry every American that we do not know how many people are left at FEMA to respond to disasters, and how many cyber defenders still work at CISA as China and other adversaries attack our systems every day. And you've made clear in response to my questioning, you have no written plans for FEMA. It is very apparent that also is no plan for CISA, where you are trying to gut the agency's funding and falsely claiming that CISA is a censorship agency. Since CISA never censored anyone, but now we are all paying a price for you buying into a baseless conspiracy theory. Secretary Noem, I'm glad that you finally came to testify before this committee, but I'm disappointed, along with a lot of my Democratic colleagues, that you stood here and took an oath to tell the truth, then repeatedly failed to do so to this committee. Let me just say, if you dance with the devil long enough, he's liable to follow you home. I hope that you will stop dancing around the truth and start telling the truth so this committee can do its work, helping to defend DHS from the attacks you've launched against it.
Kristi, it's on us to stand up for the truth. Now, let's talk about what just happened in that hearing room. Kristi Noem, who's been trying to carve out a national profile as a no-nonsense conservative warrior, sat down before Congress, raised her right hand, and swore to tell the truth. What followed was 3 hours of what Congressman Thompson rightly called dodging the truth. And let me tell you, he didn't let her off the hook for a single second. Here's the thing. When you take an oath before Congress, it isn't symbolic. It's sacred. You are testifying before the American people. You're promising transparency and honesty in a government that depends on both. But what Thompson revealed was a pattern. An administration that has allegedly defied court orders, violated constitutional protections, and manipulated the truth to fit a political agenda. That's not conservative governance. That's authoritarian behavior, plain and simple. Let's start with the Fifth Amendment. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Those are not just words. They're the backbone of American justice. Yet, under Noem's watch at DHS, a federal court found that her department was stashing legal U.S. residents in foreign prisons. Imagine that for a second, American residents being locked up overseas without access to lawyers, hearings, or due process. That's not law and order. That's lawlessness disguised as patriotism. And when the Supreme Court, the highest court in our land, ordered DHS to facilitate the return of a man named Kilmar Garcia to the United States, Noem admitted in that hearing that Garcia would never return. Think about that. A sitting official told Congress that she has no intention of following the direct order of the Supreme Court. It doesn't matter if you're left, right, or somewhere in between. Defying the rule of law is defying the Constitution itself. But the story gets even darker. Thompson revealed that DHS, under Noem's leadership, deported U.S. citizen children who were born here, some of them sick, some battling cancer. DHS officials claimed that parents chose to take those kids out of the country, but there was no documentation, no evidence, and no parental consent. In fact, families were lured into IC offices under false pretenses, denied access to lawyers, and deported before judges could even review their cases. That isn't just a policy failure, it's a moral one. This is where being a patriot means more than waving a flag. Being a patriot means standing up when our government violates the principles this country was built on. Due process, human rights, accountability. Those values are not partisan. They're American. What Thompson did in that hearing was remind us that no one, not even a Republican governor turned cabinet secretary, is above the law. He laid out how Noem has treated the Department of Homeland Security like a political weapon instead of a public safety agency. While she obsesses over border wall construction, she's cutting funding for cybersecurity, FEMA, and emergency preparedness. She's getting the very institutions that protect Americans from disasters and cyber attacks. Let's pause on that for a second. FEMA, the agency we rely on when hurricanes strike, when wildfires burn through communities, when disasters hit, is being hollowed out. CISA, the agency defending our critical infrastructure from hackers, including those backed by China and Russia, is losing talent, losing funding, and losing direction. Meanwhile, Noem and her allies are spreading conspiracy theories that CISA is some kind of censorship arm. It's not. It's literally there to defend America from digital threats. That's the cost of politics, driven by paranoia. That's what happens when leaders stop believing in governance and start believing in grievance. And Congressman Thompson made it clear, those cuts, those lies, that disregard for due process aren't just administrative errors. They're attacks on the very framework that keeps us safe. When Thompson closed his remarks with that line, "If you dance with the devil long enough, he's liable to follow you home," it wasn't just a dramatic soundbite. It was a warning that when leaders play politics with justice, when they manipulate patriotism into cruelty, when they choose power over truth, that corruption doesn't just infect Washington. It infects the nation. And as a progressive, as a left-wing patriot, I'm not interested in watching that happen in silence. Real patriotism means calling out hypocrisy, demanding accountability, and standing up for the America that believes in fairness, decency, and human dignity. What Thompson did wasn't partisan grandstanding. It was moral leadership. It was the kind of courage we need more of, because telling the truth to power has never been easy, but it's the only way democracy survives. So, when you see politicians bending reality, calling cruelty policy, or hiding behind the flag while they trample the Constitution, remember this hearing. Remember that the real patriots aren't the ones who shout the loudest about freedom. They're the ones who defend it, even when it's inconvenient. If you're tired of the lies, the cover-ups, and the cruelty, don't just watch and move on. Engage. Speak out. Vote. Demand better. And yes, like, comment, and subscribe. Because this platform isn't just about politics. It's about truth, about rebuilding trust in government, and about reminding America who we really are when we're at our best. Because when we stand together for justice, when we refuse to let corruption and cruelty define us, that's not left or right. That's American. And it's time we start acting like it again.